Everybody, welcome into To The Point. Hope you're all doing well on this Thursday, on a little bit later than usual, but we're live nonetheless. It is NFL Draft Day. I, for one, am stoked about that. Later on in the program, I will have a mock draft, kind of get you all primed for the draft this evening, talk about some players, where they might go, things of that nature. So lots to chew on there. As we're starting the podcast, just reported by Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, Lamar Jackson has agreed to a new long-term 5-year extension with the Baltimore Ravens. So it looks as though after all the deliberation, after talks of him demanding a trade, Lamar is back in Baltimore. He is going to remain a Raven. It's not yet known the money. When I find that out, I will let you all know, but nothing as of yet. So you have Lamar, who is going to remain a Raven. You got the draft this evening where there are quarterback rumors galore, lots of things happening. We also got today some NHL stuff I got to talk about. We got Leafs Lightning tonight, Game 5, obviously a must-win game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. You have Winnipeg, Vegas, must-win game for Winnipeg on the road in Sin City. Rangers, Devils, Game 5, and a whole bunch of other things the past couple nights in the National Hockey League. But let's start. Where do I want to start? It's an interesting question. There's a lot of stuff's happened. Let's start with tonight's game. Leafs Lightning tonight, Game 5. There's storylines galore. There's different ways the game could go. There's the whole something that really is, I find, quite puzzling and very funny over the last couple days is this chatter about Andrei Vasilevskiy. Is Vasilevskiy a good goal anymore? He can't make a save. This is what's wrong with him. And it honestly is quite comical. Has he been good in this series? Absolutely not. But is Andrei Vasilevskiy a bad goaltender? No, he's the best goaltender in the world. And, you know, I don't like the chatter. What's wrong? Is this going to be a long-term issue? I read a piece today about how he could be the next Carey Price when it comes to injuries and him never being the same. He's never had an injury this year. He plays every game. So this narrative is absolutely crazy to me. Maybe something happens and I will eat crow. But to me, he's still the best goaltender in the world. Can he absolutely win a game tonight and show everybody that they aren't, that they're wrong, and that he's still great? Yes. Yes, and to think that that can't be an option, it's hooey. It's crazy town. But I've told you all from the beginning of the postseason that if I trusted this team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, that they would win this series against Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games. I truly believe that. It wasn't me being hyperbolic. It wasn't me trying to spurn Leafs fans, because Leaf fans have this inferiority complex. Whenever you say anything about one of their players, they get offended, and that's fine. So there's lots of soft people in this world. Giannis Antetokounmpo can join that list. But I said before the series, Toronto should win in 5. I said 6 because I didn't trust the killer instinct of this team. I have to see it to believe it. But tonight should be the night. It should not go back to Tampa. There isn't a whole lot that Tampa can do. If you think about it this way, Tampa has played better in 3 of the 4 games. Tampa played better in Game 1. They certainly played better in Game 3. And for 45 of the 60-minute hockey game in Game 4, they were better. And they have 1 win. Meaning, Toronto is due to play a great game. Toronto is due to come up with an effort from jump that seems good, that would be adequate, that would make you excited if you're a Leaf fan, right? So if that logic holds up, which I think it's pretty fair logic, there isn't much that Tampa can do. because you threw your best punches. You're a fighter. You're early in the fight. If you are a USC fan, Raul Rojas Jr., earlier, a couple weeks ago, at UFC 287, he threw everything but the kitchen sink at Christian Rodriguez. There was nothing. He tried to get him to the ground. He tried to get a submission. He pulled up all the stops in the first round. But yet, he did not win the fight, to no avail. And by the end of that first round, he had lost his heart, his cardio, and his will to win because he had nothing left in the tank. Tampa has played 3 out of 4 great games, and they've won one of them. Think about it this way. If you go to work for 4 days and you only get one check, you only get one check for those 4 days. You only get paid for 1 day of the 4 days of work that you put in. How motivated are you going to be to continue to work hard? I know myself, I'm not going to be that motivated because why work for free? Why continue to put in effort if you don't get the end result? Why go on a diet plan? Why work out if you don't see results? So, for me, Tampa has done most of it right, and yet they don't benefit from it. So, what kind of will, what kind of desire are they going to have tonight? Now, I believe in the heart of the champion. I believe that they are a team, a dynastic team that is greater than any team we've seen, I can honestly say, in my lifetime. They are better than the Chicago Blackhawks. They are better than the Pittsburgh Penguins of the mid-2010s because they won back-to-back championships, but then made it the next year. Blackhawks won 3 in 6 years. Very impressive. But they didn't make cup final after cup final. They made a conference final in 2014, which is great. Losing to the Los Angeles Kings, who are great in that era. But it wasn't continued greatness. It wasn't continued get to the Stanley Cup final, continue to keep it going. There were stops. There were times where, they got to go to the gas station, pull off, have a snack. They got to go to the Bahamas in mid-April. They lost to the Vancouver Canucks in the 2011 first round after winning their first championship. So there's different angles to this. I didn't play professional hockey, but after a long work week, you're tired. You're tired. And imagine you work, and you never get a break. Or the break you get really isn't. Because on your vacation, you're picking up wood. You're doing manual labor outside. You're doing everything it's a chore. It's a job in a sense. You're never getting any downtime. Because when the Tampa Bay Lightning either win a cup or get to the Stanley Cup final, they don't have time to sit there and say, I'm going to go drink mojitos. I'm going to go golf. They need to start training again because the season starts in less than 2 months. There's a difference. This Leaf team, the Devils, Boston was out in the first round last year. They're rested. Yeah, they're an old team, but guess what? You're more well rested than Tampa. Toronto should be well rested. They've been going to UFC events every May. Next weekend in Newark, they're usually at that event. Austin Matthews is with Biebs, front row. So the tired, older team has thrown their best punches, but yet it hasn't gotten the win. The more fresh, the younger, the new opponent is here. Mike Tyson has been around. He's been in a lot of wars, and he's thrown a lot of punches. And more often than not, he's going to win the fight. But eventually, his chin gets a little weak. He's found a fresher opponent that hasn't fought as much. He's going to lose some. Lennox Lewis might get him. He's going to find some guys that, quite frankly, are just a little bit better than him, a little more skilled, and a little more fresh. The law averages evens out. can talk about the Tampa Bay's defense being their weakness, which it is. Because their top 4 lines are very good. Corey Perry at his age is still very effective. He's had a great series. Braden Point's still a stud. Kucherov is still one of the premier superstars in the game. Steven Stamkos has been quiet in this series and hasn't been that good. That's one guy who could do more, certainly. But looking at it in a bigger sense, this team is great up front, but their weakness is the back end. And when you have a slow, inexperienced defense, and you have people that are asked to do too much, that are not capable of doing what you're asking them, you're not going to win. I've had this conversation about the Maple Leafs forever. Asking Morgan Rielly to play 25 minutes, it's not a successful way to run your business. Ask him to play 21, ask him to play 20. Yeah, you're doing well. Balance out your jobs. Don't ask one employee to do everything, and then you have 4 employees standing over there with nothing to do. They're chatting, they're not being efficient, and your business isn't run as well. The Maple Leafs now with TJ Brody, with Jake McCabe, with Morgan Rielly, with Luke Schenn in the appropriate position, you are set up better. You are going to have more success in this model. So the team is better. Your goaltender has been better. To me, it's quite simple. I don't see a scenario where Toronto loses tonight. I will say that I will be stunned if the Leafs lose this game tonight. They should win by 2 goals or more. And yes, it's a closeout game. And it's difficult to close it out, and especially for Toronto. But something I would tell Leaf fans, this isn't the same team. This isn't the same sad sack team that's been letting you down for 20 years. Players come in, players come out. Jason Spezza sitting with Kyle Dubas. Not lost on me. They're not winning without him. Nobody wants to say it. I will. Still could have had Corey Perry instead of Jason Spezza. Goose egg there, Kyle Dubas. But it's a different team every year. Not everybody's lumped together. The Chicago Cubs did not win a World Series in 108 years. Players that played on that team died before they won. Multiple decades of people were dead. Sometimes it's just a team's better than you. Last year, Tampa was a little bit better. Tampa was a little bit better than Toronto. This year, it's not that close. Toronto is a much better hockey team than the Tampa Bay Lightning. Toronto's better goaltending. They have better defense. And their top-end superstars are playing like it despite past seasons. Now, regarding Michael Bunting, who's been suspended the last 3 games and is a healthy scratch tonight. That was a big discussion on Twitter the last couple days. Michael Bunting's not playing. What a mistake. Okay. I get it. He was in your top 6 all year. He's an impact player in a sense. He brings a different energy, does different things. He's a factor for sure. He does something. Something different. Here's my thought. You've won 3 in a row. You were suspended for a stupid play that nobody can justify, including him. Why should you just get to come back in? Why do you just get to walk back in the door? If we look at our society and the way it works now, if you screw up once, if you do something that's even a little bit controversial, you're done. Look at Tucker Carlson. Look at Don Lemon. Two really successful people. All things considered. They're out. They're unemployed. Tucker Carlson might be the next POTUS. Who knows? But they're not where their job was because they made some errors. One left, one right. Michael Bunting is an X. As an X factor, which an X factor can be good or it can be bad. If you're losing, he comes in because he's an X factor, because he's a spark plug, because he brings you something different. But to me, you've won 3 in a row. You've made very little mistakes when it comes to penalties, when it comes to emotions in these respective games. Don't put yourself in the position to make another mistake. The Maple Leafs are making the correct decision because this is a fucking closeout game. This isn't game 1. This isn't a 2-1 series where you need the win on home ice. It's a series where you're up 3-1. You do not want somebody to come kicking down the door when you're about to finish the home. You don't want somebody come scuffing up the lawn after it's just seeded. Stay off. Let us finish the job and we'll invite you over when we want you to see it. How about you come over when we invite you to see the baby? Don't come to the hospital. We'll call us. We'll call you. Don't call us, okay? That's how the Leafs are handling Michael Bunting, and it's the correct way to handle it. You don't just come back in the lineup if you're an average player, and that's exactly what he is. He's an average player that can be replaced. Matthew Knies, who I was skeptical of, who isn't a superstar, but knows who he is already as a player, which is the best trait that he has. He knows what he has to do to be successful, and I appreciate that about him because that's so hard to teach. That's so hard to tell people. Be this, don't be that. Be good defensively, chip in, be smart, steal pucks, lead a transition. That sounds really good. You know how many people do that in the NHL effectively? Not that many, including Michael Bunting. Michael Bunting, if the Leafs win tonight, which I think they will, he will be playing game 1 against Florida or Boston. Book it. Book it. Put it in writing anywhere you want. I guarantee it. Done. Signed, sealed, delivered. But when you have an opportunity to close out a team, when you have an opportunity to close out a series, which the Leafs haven't done since 2004, you want predictability. You want continuity. You don't want your crazy cousin Eddie coming over and ruining your Christmas. Call him when you want to invite over for a holiday. Don't just show up. Don't do the pop in. Don't just pop in. People say they like a pop in. Oh, it's no problem. You just showed up. Nobody likes it. Nobody. That's why whenever I go somewhere, I ask people, can I stop in? If they say no to me, I will not be offended. Because I know when people pop in to see me without telling me, I don't really want to see them. So let's figure out a time that works for the both of us. Hey, Michael, we love you. Even though you're going to make too much money and we're not going to re-sign you. But we love you to death, okay? Sault Ste. Marie, Arizona, we love you, okay? We love you to death. But we love you more in round 2, game 1, when we can afford for you to make another mistake. That's when we really love you. Right now, we love you, but just a little less. Just less love. Same amount of love. It's just, we got some love in the corner. We got some love behind me. Dirk's got some love. We got all of it. But it's just spread out. So, yeah, don't just pop in tonight. Stay home. Press box. go in press box. You can stay there, but don't pop into the lineup. Just stay back. We're good. We're good with that. It's the correct decision. I want smart players in closeout games. Michael Bunting is a lot of things. He's not a smart player. It took Nazem Kadri 3 times to figure it out. And then he still got suspended in Colorado. So has he ever really figured it out? When people do stupid stuff, yes, people can change. But normally, you stay the same. You stay the same. I'm going to be a curmudgeon the rest of my life. I'm not changing that. Why? I'm fantastic now. Somewhat. But I'm going to continue to be me. Whether people are like it or not. Dirk here is going to bark when people show up. I wish he wouldn't. It angers me. I wish she would make a different decision with her life, but she's probably not, because Dirk is Dirk. Right? Yeah. See, that's human beings. That's human interaction. You are who you are. For guests on the podcast, Seamus is going to not trust his team until they win. He's going to reverse jinx them and say he's not reverse jinxing them on the podcast when we all know he's full of it, because we all knew he knew the team was going to win. I love him. But he lied there, which I can appreciate. Who doesn't love a good lie? The Leafs are going to win tonight. The Leafs will win their first playoff series since 2004. What happens in round 2? We'll get to that. But Leaf fans, don't fret. Tomorrow is going to be a good day. And if it isn't, you can blame me. Because, sure, you can throw the blame on me. Because 1, I don't care. 2, I don't care. And 3, I'm just a nice guy. You know, I don't want you to blame your other fans. Blame me. And 4, I don't care. Speaking of not caring, I cannot say that about Matthew Tkachuk. If you want to see a care meter, a pulse on what it means to care and your drive to win, Matthew Tkachuk might be on the cover, and Brady might be in one of the pieces. This is the New York Times. Matthew Tkachuk's on the cover, and then you see Brady about 8 pages in when they write the piece. These guys love hockey. They love to compete, and they want to win no matter what. And throughout this series, the Florida-Boston series, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, Brandon Montour, and the new arrival, Carter Verhaeghe, who didn't show up until last night, have been the pulse of the team. They've done everything they could to be good. They've tried to help the team. The team has made mistake after mistake. But Matthew Tkachuk has cared. He's put up points. He's battled. He's back-checked. And we learned something new last night about Matthew Tkachuk. And this is true. He is clutch. Matthew Tkachuk is a clutch player. Scoring an overtime winner, being involved in the tying goal, being on the best line on the ice throughout the entire series, and keeping this team afloat. And Paul Maurice said this after the game. He said Matthew Tkachuk is an expletive gamer, meaning he's a fucking gamer. And that's precisely what he is. When I pick a favorite player, it's not because I just pick them at random. I pick the guys that I know are just fucking love to compete. Matthew Tkachuk battled. He's on an inferior team, and the Florida Panthers have won 2 against the Boston Bruins. They have won 2 games at TD Garden, where the Boston Bruins lost 6 games all year long. 6. Matthew Tkachuk and co. And it goes like that. Not Sasha Barkov, who's still fucking missing. He's in Finland or he's with Jonathan Huberdeau. Maybe they're in Calgary together playing poker. But he's nowhere to be seen. Matthew Tkachuk is the captain. He's the pulse. He is the heartbeat of the Florida Panthers. But to me, I saw something different last night from that team where they were outplayed. They had no business winning that game. But Bobrovsky stepped up, and the Boston Bruins have played this series believing that they can play. They can play without thinking. They can be lazy. They can not value the puck and still win. Tyler Bertuzzi on the first goal. Brutal turnover. Brutal. Just threw it behind, a backwards pass behind him. Bounces off a couple people. Duclair in the back of the net. We'll get to Linus Ullmark play in a second. In Game 2, Boston had 18 giveaways. They are not valuing the puck. They are thinking the game is going to be easier than it is. It's the playoffs. Every team wants it. And if you don't think every team wants it, look at Seattle, who's leading a series against the defending Stanley Cup champions. The New Jersey Devils, who lost 2 at home and then went into the Garden and won 2. Something the Cavs couldn't do in NBA, I'll tell you that. And the Garden's just as loud for hockey. There's just different ways to battle, different pulses. And when Tkachuk scored that goal, he skated down the ice. He gave it some thought, and then you saw him in the locker room. He said, we're coming back here for Game 7. To me, every time he speaks, he's trying to get the rest of that team to say, maybe we should put our fucking skates on for once. Maybe we should do something meaningful. And he got Bobrovsky and Verhaeghe to jump on board last night. Bobrovsky was fantastic. That save on Marchand, the last second of regulation, clutch. That save on Pasternak in overtime, clutch. And something I give him credit for, he did not make a mistake playing the puck like Linus Ullmark. If you didn't catch the game, if you went to bed before overtime, there's a play along the boards. Charlie McAvoy's pinching in. There's no defense. They're skating back towards the puck. We have Matt Grzelcyk. Linus Ullmark's coming out to play the puck. It's completely behind the net. He can leave the puck there for Grzelcyk to pick it up. But as Grzelcyk's about a foot away from him, he decides to throw a backhand saucer pass. Why? I don't know. Stupidity, cockiness, arrogance, stupidity again. I don't know what it was. But he decided to make this play. Bounces over Grzelcyk. Verhaeghe panics. He shoots it quick. Stupid play. But he did it anyway. Bounces off the Bruin to Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk doesn't shoot the puck right away because it would have been stopped. He holds it, finds a different lane, back of the net, ball game, see ya in Sunrise. Boston's not valuing the puck. They're playing stupid. Jim Montgomery has gotten the Sheldon Keefe bug. He's changing lines every damn shift. You have the best team in hockey, Jim. Let them play with each other. Let the perfection line cook. You know why? Because Bertuzzi and Hall and Coyle and Foligno and Hathaway, these guys can play each other down the lineup. Look at Taylor Hall's got 6 goals in the postseason. Taylor Hall's playing phenomenal. But yet you're changing lines every shift. You're doing everything you can to fuck it up. You had chemistry literally from October till 2 weeks ago. You're up 3-2, but you have no business playing a game 6. And here's the thing. You're giving Florida hope. And this is what the Leafs can't do tonight. And this is what the Vegas Golden Knights can't do tonight. Don't give the team hope. You lost a game at home, and now it goes back to Sunrise. And I get the Florida Panther crowd will be half Bruins fans. Doesn't matter. It's another game. Another game where things can go wrong. There could be an injury. You're more tired because the Leafs are going to close out the game tonight, as I told you earlier. So there's nothing positive about playing another game. Literally nothing. For Linus Ullmark, you had one good year in this league. Cut the shit. Cut the shit. Charlie McAvoy, play better. You haven't been good in this series. And I love Charlie McAvoy. I have him as a top 5 defenseman in the league. He's that valuable. Charlie McAvoy is a better defenseman than Erik Karlsson. Charlie McAvoy is a better defenseman than Josh Morrissey, than any of those top guys, than Quinn Hughes. Any of these top point getters, Charlie McAvoy is better than them because fundamentally he is. Hasn't been in the series. All over the place. Mistakes, mistakes, mistakes. Play your game. Move the puck efficiently. Value the puck. Game 6 tomorrow. I had a weird feeling about this series from the beginning. It was sweeps, and I picked Florida to win a game. I wouldn't be stunned if they win tomorrow. It goes back to TD Garden for a game 7. Wouldn't shock me. Is Boston a hell of a lot better than Florida? Yeah. That doesn't mean you win the series. The best team doesn't always win. The best player always doesn't win a series. Before we get to Colorado, the Lamar Jackson news is official. The Baltimore Ravens and quarterback Lamar Jackson have agreed to terms on a contract extension. Jackson has reportedly been seeking, let's see what the money is here. Just had that pull up, and now the article doesn't have the money in it. That's always great when you're doing a podcast, but thanks, The Score. Helpful tip there. Let's see here. Lamar Jackson. I mean, this has been going on forever. Talks of his deal. What's he going to make? So, Lamar Jackson gets his long-term contract with the Baltimore Ravens. The team announced that they've agreed in principle on a 5-year deal with the 26-year-old quarterback. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports the deal is worth $260 million, making Jackson the highest-paid player in the NFL. Now, in this article, it doesn't say how much guaranteed money that is. 260 divided by 5 is 52. So that is more money than Jalen Hurts. That is more money than Patrick Mahomes. My thought there is how much guaranteed money is it? Did he get $200 million guaranteed in that deal? Jalen Hurts got $179, so I would certainly say Lamar got more than Jalen when it comes to guaranteed money, because I don't think he'd sign the contract otherwise, because that's how this thing works. But Jalen Hurts gets his deal. Now there's Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. Those guys will be waiting. But good for Lamar. I'm happy about this. I personally wish he wasn't with Baltimore. I think it'd be funner if he wasn't a Baltimore Raven. That would have been my personal choice because I think seeing him on another team, getting money from somebody else, I like quarterback movement, I like stories. Like at least the Aaron Rodgers story had a payoff where he ends up a Jet. He's not back with the Packers. That's boredom central. But he gets his money, and that's what I'm most excited for. He deserves every penny. It's a risk deal for Baltimore because he is so injury prone. But he's won an MVP. You're in the AFC. You need a really good quarterback to compete. This is signed right before the draft, which is not lost on me. Because I think I look at teams like Atlanta. I look at even Detroit, possibly the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Houston, if they don't select a quarterback tonight. Those teams could have been in on Lamar after the draft. They could have made calls. Atlanta Falcons have Desmond Ridder and the Green Lizard, Taylor Heineke. They may have wanted to look around and see what was available to inquire about Lamar. They said they didn't want him forever. A lot of that's fodder. A lot of that just isn't true. So I think for Baltimore, this draft day was a key point for them. It was a sticking point where they had to make a decision and they had to pay up because the fear of after the draft capital, it becomes more and more real. So Aaron Rodgers gets traded before the draft because the Packers wanted the 13th pick and not the 15th pick. That was important to them. And in this sense, to me, Lamar is signed before the draft because they worry about what can happen after the draft. And after the draft, you get closer and closer to that date, to holding out. Is he reporting to camp? Now he's signed. He'll be at minicamp. He can work with receivers. Do the Baltimore Ravens take a receiver tonight? I would look into it. I wouldn't put it off the table for Baltimore. I know they love their great defenses. But lots of possibilities. But I'm happy for Lamar. He remains in Baltimore. Now in the AFC, you have Lamar. You get Deshaun Watson. You have Aaron Rodgers, Tua, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, porn star Jimmy, likely Bryce Young, who's going to go number 1 overall in the draft. So he's in the NFC. There's a lot of really good talent. A lot of great quarterbacks in the AFC, not as many in the NFC. So to compete, you need a great quarterback. Baltimore clearly realized that. They re-signed their guy. So congratulations to Lamar and congratulations to Baltimore for getting out of this. Back to hockey. Colorado, Seattle. I've been a proponent of the Kraken all year long. I thought they were a good team. I predicted them to make the playoffs before the season started. And it's because they have so many guys that can score goals. That was how they played all year long. Yet into this postseason, they are playing different, and they're not winning because they have so many guys that can score. That's still true. But they're beating the Colorado Avalanche because of their work ethic. They are beating the Colorado Avalanche because of their puck pressure from all 4 lines. It is really hard to move the puck against this team. It is really hard to make quick decisions. And when you don't have Cale Makar in your lineup, And Devon Toews has to do a lot of it. You have Jack Johnson, Eric Johnson, Sammy Girard, woof. It is hard to win. But Seattle, guys like Yanni Gourde, like Brandon Tanev, like Jaden Schwartz, who made a key play on a goal last night, every line is making it difficult on Colorado to create scoring chances, but in the biggest picture, to exit the zone effectively. Constantly, there's somebody in your way. Constantly, there's somebody hounding you from behind. And before you know it, the play's dead. The play is back in your zone, and you're gassed because you haven't got off the ice. That is what Seattle does so well. They make your life difficult. They are a pest. They are like your sibling that is such a pain in the ass, but they do it effectively. They're constantly around. Philip Grubauer has been good. He was good last night. He made 28 saves. But it wasn't about his saves. Because I think he had a relatively easy night. Easy day at the office because his team made it pretty simplistic on him. Today's headline is Nathan MacKinnon's upset at the officials. He's upset on the second goal by Ty Carty, who scored his first career NHL playoff goal last night. Awesome moment. His family was there. The headline is, well, Nathan MacKinnon, Colorado got robbed from this play. That's not correct. It's a nice headline. It's juicy. It's easy for a sports writer than digging deep into the series. But if you stayed up to watch the game, if you've been watching these games, and I don't blame you, they're on late, so that's why you come to me. The reason Seattle is winning is not because the officials are being hard on the defending Stanley Cup champions. No. Do I think that was a call against Nathan MacKinnon? Sure, but it's the playoffs. It's the playoffs. I'm not the proponent. Let's call everything. We got to call everything. Hey, let's get another fucking power play. No, if you've been listening to me the last couple of days, I hate that stuff. It's not interesting. Power plays, okay, another power play, whatever. That's enough of that, right? So I apologize for laughing because my dog is sniffing at me as I'm talking to you all. She doesn't like the officials either. But the bigger picture here is Seattle is playing their ass off. They have a belief. They don't quit. And what I like most about this team is they're like a chameleon. They didn't play this way in the regular season. This isn't the way they were giving up run and gun down the ice, score goals. They were like the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento hasn't changed. All they do is score points and don't play defense. Seattle is playing good defensive hockey. They've made the pivot into the postseason, and they're being rewarded for it. Nathan MacKinnon is not pissed off because he didn't get that call. Nathan MacKinnon is pissed off that the rest of his team isn't playing. Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon are solo, and they're playing a pretty damn good team. Colorado this year is Edmonton of old. It's Draisaitl, it's McDavid against everybody else. Against that entire team, because our group sucks. Alex Newhook, Ben Myers. These guys are doing nothing. Cogliano. Nikushkin is doing something. He's not even with the team. Who knows what the hell he's doing? Nobody's helping us. Makar got suspended. Thanks, bud. Bowen Byram, I can't get the puck out of my zone. Oh, crap. McKinnon's got to go end-to-end because he's got nobody else. Every damn shift, I'm wiped. How about you guys have an offensive zone shift? No, we can't get the puck out of our zone because Seattle keeps hounding us. And they don't have a superstar. They didn't have their best player last night, Jared McCann. They still won because they're a team. They play like a team. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win the series, but I think they're going to. It's going to be Game 6 tomorrow night, home ice in Seattle. Only the third playoff game at Climate Pledge Arena. And you have an opportunity to do something special. You have the opportunity to kill the defending Stanley Cup champions. You have the opportunity to send them packing first round, 2011 Blackhawks style, 2013 Kings. It happens sometimes, but you look, Washington made the playoffs, St. Louis made the playoffs. They got beat out in the first round. Canucks, bubble. You can do it. Kill, slay them in that arena, in front of that crowd. Climate Pledge, Seattle. Makar's going to play, but still. Forget the headline that McKinnon didn't get the call. It was not as egregious as Braden Point's goal not counting. It was not as egregious as the miss high stick call in the LA Edmonton game. It wasn't as bad. Should there have been a call in the play? Sure, but I'm not going to be one to complain about a non-call because I don't care enough. Don't let the official decide the game. And McKinnon, I get it. You don't have any help. There's no Kadri. Lekkonen's a ghost. Landeskog has one knee. Makar's suspended throwing stupid hits. Guys you relied on last year are gone. They got more money elsewhere. That's the difficulty of winning. That's the difficulty of being great. Because when you are great, you are penalized. And I truly believe for Colorado to win this series, they need to do two things. They need to figure out how to get the puck out of their zone more efficiently. Forwards, get back in. Do more. Don't hang out by the blue line so the defense can gap up on you. Make wingers be available for an exit pass. Center, be available for an exit pass. That's step one. Step two, somebody help McKinnon and Rantanen. Somebody step up and play. These two guys are two of the best players in the NHL, no doubt about it. But JT Compher, I love you, bud, but you get 2 points in 5 games. Terry Lekkonen, I love you, bud, but you got 2 assists. Dennis Malgin, good luck. Alex Newhook, 1 point. Sound good? Evan Rodriguez, you've actually been pretty good. You got 4 and 5. You're doing your part, but you're playing with McKinnon, so it kind of doesn't count. But look at this. Malgin, Nieto, O'Connor. These guys didn't play last year. Sammy Girard didn't play last year. Lars Eller. No points. Dunzo. Zilch. Nada. Step up, my man. So, you have a team that just isn't that good. That's what we're coming to the conclusion here. That doesn't mean they won't win this series, but I don't think they're going to. Because Seattle is just a better team. Colorado has 2 better players than Seattle does. Yes. Well, 3 with Makar. But that doesn't mean they're going to win the series. Why didn't the Bucks win the series? They have a better player. They have the best player in the NBA. They still lost. It happens. A team beats you. We got Rangers Devils as well tonight, game 5. For New Jersey, continue to play the game you're playing. Lock it up. Make it boring. Don't give them anything. That's my advice to you. But I'll tell you, if I'm the New York Rangers, I picked you to get to the Stanley Cup final. I picked you to win the Cup before the year. What they need to do is get out of the Panarin malaise. And if you're not familiar with the Artemi Panarin malaise, it's when you stop caring, you stop putting in effort, and you don't get to the middle of the ice. That's happened here. Artemi Panarin is a wildly talented player, but I hate everything that his game is. His game is selfish. His game is no effort, and he acts as if everything's going to come easy to him, and that is a horrible way to play the game of hockey. It's a horrible way to go through life, and he does it in spades. This team is under the Panarin malaise. First 2 games, they were a team of effort. They were the team that worked harder than New Jersey to get to the areas that you have to get to win. They haven't. Zibanejad, I love you, man. Still, the hair still looks great, but come on. Break a sweat. Be nice. Try. A couple laps. Pat Kane, hanging out with Panarin a little bit off the ice. Guys going to Ed Sub. Going to a couple raves. Hanging out. Playing video games. A little Chell. A little Fortnite. Whatever the kids do. Guys playing Lego Batman. Xbox One. What are you doing? It's not working. Not working on the ice, and it's not working, period. Plural. Could you put in some effort? Do something? Trocheck? Fox? I worried about this Rangers team being too soft. I still have that worry. Because of the way they're built. To me, the player I'm looking at tonight for the New York Rangers to be an X factor is Filip Chytil. Filip Chytil's a stud, and I think if the Rangers win tonight, which I think they're going to, I think the kid line will score a minimum of 2 goals, and that kid line is Alexis Lafreniere, Capo Caco, and Filip Chytil. I think they'll score 2 goals tonight, that line. I'm going to say that line has at least a combined 5 points this evening. Because when they want to play, when they want to put in the effort, they are very difficult to deal with. They were quiet. They weren't creating enough. Akira Schmid's been very good through 2 games, but he hasn't been tested much. He's had 2 games where he's gotten very good defense in front of him, but he also has had 0 people pushing up against him from the Rangers side. New Jersey's a small team. Their defense are tough to get through. Hamilton, Siegenthaler, Severson, Kevin Ball. They're big dudes. They're big. You got to work to get to that area. If you have the Panarin malaise this evening and then Saturday evening on ABC, you are going to be golfing. You are going to be watching the Knicks at MSG. The crew there will never have to change the floor because it will just be Knicks home games. But I do think the Rangers win tonight. Maybe fool's gold, but I believe they find a way to win this evening. Vegas, Winnipeg. How about Winnipeg? No Josh Morrissey, no Mark Scheifele. Mark Scheifele's last game might have been a Game 3 that nobody remembers. A game that nobody remembers, and he got injured in the first period. He could walk this offseason, which I think he will. For Winnipeg, I look at one guy to be a difference maker tonight. Connor Hellebuyck. Outplay Laurent Brossoit. Can't be that hard. I mean, come on. Nick Ehlers is a game time decision. No Morrissey, no Mark Scheifele. Up front, Winnipeg's going to be trailing because they don't have as many talented players. Adam Lowry can only be so good, and he's already been fantastic. He's a goal per game in the series. Morgan Barron, Mason Appleton, that line plays hard every night. Blake Wheeler, do you have anything left in the tank? But I look at Hellebuck and I say steal one. Because maybe Scheifele can play on Saturday if you win. Dubois, Hellebuck. You can throw in Niederreiter, who's at point per game in this series, but he's going to have to do it again. Because the rest of your roster, it's thin. Kyle Connor also could step up. But to me, Vegas has played so well defensively in this series. They look extremely confident. Brossoit's been good, very good in this series. Chandler Stevenson's been fantastic. I've talked about him a lot. Jack Eichel's looked solid after a rough start. He's looked very, very good. Vegas is a tough out. No doubt about it. Vegas, Edmonton would be a hell of a lot of fun in the second round. Vegas presents a lot of difficult matchups. They have a lot of different defense that they can throw at McDavid. I'm not looking ahead to that. But tomorrow, we have 4 Game 6s. Hurricanes in Long Island. Islanders force Game 6. Who saw that coming? Not me. How about Matt Barzal making a play that wasn't awful? Who saw that coming? Not me. How about Pierre Engvall having a game? Who saw that coming? Not me. Playing with Brock Nelson. It works. Can they keep that going at home? Who knows? Carolina never loses on home ice. They did in Game 5. Bruins in Sunrise. Dallas at Minnesota. Minnesota with a goose egg of a Game 5. Marcus Foligno ejection. Complete bullshit. He has more of a gripe than McKinnon. But we won't talk about that because it's Marcus Foligno. And he's a big, strong man. An Avalanche Kraken, Game 6. That's all tomorrow. We'll talk about their series tomorrow. How about Edmonton? They play Tuesday night. They're not going to play again until Saturday. That might sound like a good thing. It really isn't. Because in the long run, you're not getting a rest. You have to play a lot of hockey. Your next series will likely start Monday if you win. That means you get 1 day of rest and you have to travel to Las Vegas. But the NHL is going to line up their schedule. And the funny thing is the NHL wants the Toronto Maple Leafs to win this game badly. Not just Sportsnet, TSN to some extent, but TSN doesn't get the rights. So I guess they don't really care, but they want their host to have something to talk about because then they would be required to be up to date on the rest of the league, which I know is tough. It's tough for them, and I get that. It's tough to do. It really is, when you're covering the NHL. But God love them. They try their best. So it's tough to do that. But everybody wants Toronto to win. But here's the thing: they don't want them to win tonight. They don't want them to win tonight because they want the Saturday night game. What will they do? The first round's still going. We know it is because the Rangers-Devils is already scheduled 9 p.m. Saturday night on ABC and ESPN. So there's already something in a slot for Saturday, meaning, and the Bruins play tomorrow night, so there isn't a game there. Do you put Winnipeg on at 8 o'clock at night? Maybe, but are they going to survive tonight? Who knows? Becomes very tricky if you don't have a game that night. If you only have one, it's a 9 o'clock slot. That's already set in. It's a little later than the 8 o'clock normality on CBC. Ooh, what happens? So, of course, the league wants Toronto to win. Sportsnet. But every analyst in that building, every analyst fan, because that's what they are, kind of, sort of, wants them to lose tonight. because they get that extra night of programming, they get that extra game, they get the extra eyeballs. Because if the Leafs win tonight, who's watching Rangers Devils on Saturday night? I will. But how many people, if you maybe you'll set up plans because you think the Leafs are going on a cup run? I won't have many nights that I can do something. I can't go downtown. I can't do this. I get the Leaf game every other night till June. So the bitter irony, listen for that today. If you ever hear it in somebody's voice, where they want them to win, of course, but they don't want them to win tonight. Does Ron McLean, does he make it sound like he doesn't want the Leafs to win tonight? I think we might hear it in his voice. I think we might hear that passion about the Michael Bunting situation just in this sense. This is nothing against those people rooting for it. I got no problem rooting for programming. I root for content. But I can make good content whether the Leafs win or not. That's the difference between me and other people. That doesn't mean I'm better. It just means I'm different, right? Not to toot my own horn more than I already am. Let's pivot to the NFL because it is draft night. We got NHL. We have one NBA game tonight in Hotlanta. But in Kansas City, it's the NFL draft. And this is a fun night. I love the NFL draft. I love the NFL. This stuff is interesting. It is every year. And I made a little mock draft here. I've got some players that I'll tell you about that you should look out for tonight if you are watching the draft. Because there's some talent and there's some interesting storylines. So let's start. The first pick belongs to the Carolina Panthers. And the first pick has been really decided for about 3 weeks. The Carolina Panthers are taking selecting Bryce Young. They are selecting Bryce Young, number 1 overall. And I think it's the right pick. Carolina traded up, if you remember, with Chicago. They have all the talent. They have a lot of good players on this roster. They had to trade DJ Moore, but they could have been a playoff team last year with a good quarterback. But they trade up. They hired Frank Reich. Bryce Young's a quarterback from Alabama. He showed a lot of promise last year. He's small. He's only 5'10", but he's uber talented. And to me, he's the right pick for Carolina. So Bryce Young is going to the Carolina Panthers. The second pick belongs to the Houston Texans. This is where it gets interesting, and this is where the draft starts. The Houston Texans have Davis Mills as their quarterback under contract. He is not a good quarterback. They did not win many games last year. And they should be selecting a quarterback, the Houston Texans. But here's the thing. For all draft season, we've heard that Houston may not take a quarterback even though they need one. They might go with pass rusher, which there's a couple. There's Tyree Wilson, defensive end from Texas Tech. There's Will Anderson Jr., the great player from Alabama. Houston needs a quarterback. There are multiple quarterbacks in this draft. Why not take one? Here's my rationale as to why, if they don't do it, I don't completely kill them. And it comes from a position of just narcissism and not thinking about the product on the field. If I'm running a team and I think a quarterback's decent, but in a year I can get a quarterback that's phenomenal, I will say, fuck this season so I can get to phenomenal. I will punt. I will play 8 home games and lose 7 of them, but say in a year, hey, fan base, we are getting Caleb Williams. We are getting Drake Lady May. We are getting Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. You are going to get somebody extremely talented, a franchise changer, who are all better than the quarterbacks in this draft. That makes sense to me. What's difficult is for an owner to buy that. Because an owner looks at it and says, I need gate revenue. I need merchandise sales. I need something to market my team. And Houston has nothing. Deshaun Watson's gone, thankfully. Davis Mills, nobody's buying a Davis Mills jersey. Nobody's buying, they don't have a receiver of notoriety. John Mechie is coming back to the NFL. He had cancer. He's a Canadian, played at Alabama. So they'll have him. Their best player really is a running back, which is a rarity. But it screams take a quarterback. But I understand their rationale because there's three guys they could take. There's CJ Stroud, who is, to me, I haven't seen many red flags with CJ. He's extremely accurate. He's not the most mobile guy, but you don't have to be. He's mobile when you need him to be. He was phenomenal in the college football semifinal against Georgia, where he balled out. You could argue he had the best game of his collegiate career. There's Anthony Richardson, who is so talented, but he's inaccurate. He makes a lot of wild decisions. So he's not a set thing at quarterback. He's a project. He's a guy that teams are going to take, hope that they can develop him into something special. And then there's Will Levis, who was phenomenal 2 years ago at Kentucky. He lost a lot of offensive linemen. He lost a lot of receivers. And he had a horrible season at Kentucky. And he's coming into this draft process where people either love him or they hate him. And there's a lot of different grades on him. But listening to so many podcasts, to so many different opinions, people either have 2 quarterbacks with first-round grades or 1. There's 1 to 2 quarterbacks with first-round grades. Stroud, Bryce Young, the rest don't, but they are going to go in the first round because people need quarterbacks. So I am of the opinion that the Houston Texans either take CJ Stroud because he's the one that's the most sure thing to be good for me, or if you don't want to take CJ, you don't trust him, punt. Punt on the season. Nick Caserio, tell your owner, we're going to get Caleb Williams next year. He's so good at USC. We're going to bring him in. He's going to be our quarterback of the future. We can do this. Just give me a year. It's a tough sell, but I would try to sell it. Do whatever you have to do to sell the car. Sell it like they did to George Costanza and say it was a John Voight's car. An 85 LeBaron. Doesn't matter. John Voight owned it. Yes, the actor, we think. Not the podiatrist. Do what you got to do to sell it. It's a tough sell. The fans are going to be pissed. But I, for one, would be okay with it if I know I'm getting something fantastic. If I have to drive an 85 LeBaron, if I know I'm getting a Maserati in 6 months, I'll do it. What's 6 months if I can get a Maserati? Every year, we go through shitty winters because we know summer's coming. If you know that good times are coming, let the good times roll, then guess what? Do it. I believe Houston, I don't know who they're going to take. It's still puzzling. I was listening to NFL Live before I came here live, before I went live here on To The Point, and they don't know. Schefter doesn't know. It's complete nonsense. I think they're going to take Tyree Wilson, defensive end out of Texas Tech. I'll probably be wrong. Third pick, Arizona. Here's the thing with Arizona. They may want to trade out of this pick because they don't need a quarterback. Their team stinks, and they need more capital. So if you could trade out of it for a team that wants a quarterback so you can get more draft picks, do it. Tennessee could move up. You look, Atlanta may move up. Washington, potentially. Maybe Tampa. There are teams that could use some quarterbacks. So I would look at that. If I'm Arizona, I would consider trading the pick if I can get a lot in return. However, if none of the offers are great, if I'm Arizona, if Houston doesn't pick a quarterback, like I just said, they take Tyree Wilson. If I'm Arizona, I am taking Will Anderson Jr. because I think Will Anderson Jr. is the best player in the draft. He is the most sure thing to be a good player. He may not be an all-pro, but I think he'll be a Pro Bowler, a really good pass rusher. He had a great college career. He did it at Alabama. I would take Will Anderson Jr. Trade out if you can get a whole lot in return, but if Will Anderson Jr. is sitting there for you, take him. Because either Will Anderson Jr. or Jalen Carter are the best players in this draft. That brings us to number 4, Indianapolis. Indianapolis needs a quarterback. They are the team of veterans. Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Andrew Luck. They've been going through old man after old man. They fired Frank Reich. They brought in a new head coach. It's time for Shane Steichen. It's time for change. Indy is taking a quarterback at 4. All the smoke is telling us that Indy loves Will Levis. They like Will Levis a lot. They think he can be productive. They love themselves a white quarterback in Indy. Not saying they're racist, just pointing out a fact. Peyton, Andrew Luck, Phil Rivers, Matt Ryan. Again, not a racial thing, just pointing out a fact. Facts are facts. Will Levis, Kentucky, white, big arm, not that mobile. God, that screams Indianapolis quarterback if there ever was one. Indy is going to take Will Levis. He's going to become a Colt. I would not take Will Levis over C.J. Stroud, but I think they will. I got Will Levis being the next quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. Number 5, another interesting pick, the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle just re-signed Geno Smith. They have this pick because Russell Wilson was so terrible in Denver. So it's a cash money pick. They got really good players. They got a smart coach. They got a decent quarterback. They have a lot of different options here. For Seattle, to me, there's 2 choices. You either take Anthony Richardson, the project who can sit behind Geno Smith and learn, or you take Jalen Carter, arguably him or Will Anderson Jr., best player in the draft. Jalen Carter was supposed to go first overall. He's dropped because he was involved in a car accident. He was overweight at his pro day, but on the field, he's as productive as they come. He's won back-to-back national championships. He's a tackling machine, tackles for losses. He does it all. To me, I think they're going to love him in Seattle. They've been drafting great defensive players lately. Tariq Woolen was fantastic last year at corner. To me, Seattle, Jalen Carter makes too much sense. Makes too much sense. You take the best player in the draft at 5. I love that. Pete Carroll, I think, is going to say, I can do enough. I can fix this player. I can mold him. I'm not concerned about Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter to Seattle. Number 6, Detroit. Detroit, another team that will consider quarterback. Because they have Jared Goff, but is Jared Goff good enough to win you a Super Bowl? Detroit has a really good roster. Detroit is the favorite to win the NFC North currently, which they should be. Amon St. Brown. They just brought in David Montgomery. They have DeAndre Swift. Jamison Williams will be back after 6 games. Solid offensive line. So they have 2 different options. They just traded Jeff Okudah to the Atlanta Falcons. And there's the best positions in this draft, top to bottom, are corners and tight ends in this draft, in my opinion. So they can go corner, or they could, like I said, I don't think Richardson will go to Seattle. But they could look at Richardson and say he's got all this talent. He can be a game changer. We're going to take him, and he can learn behind Jared Goff, former number 1 overall pick. Jared Goff's our quarterback next year, but he's number 2. Hopefully down the line he can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Detroit, to me, can be too good next year. The NFC is so weak. Your division no longer has Aaron Rodgers. The Minnesota Vikings won the most one-score games in the history of the NFL. That's not going to happen again. The Chicago Bears are better but not great. You will select the best corner in the draft, you take Christian Gonzalez, the corner out of Oregon. You need to replace Jeff Okuda. Your defense is your weakness. You got Aiden Hutchinson. I would have said take on Jalen Carter at 6 if he was there. He's not. There isn't another great. There's a Lucas Van Ness is a pass rusher that's good from Iowa, but it's a bit of a risk. He's had some injury problems. Take Christian Gonzalez. Get your corner. Hopefully he can be more productive than Jeff Okuda. 7th pick, Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, if you recall, have porn star Jimmy Garoppolo. Vegas could also take a quarterback because Jimmy Garoppolo is not your quarterback of the future because we know he'll miss 5-6 games next year at least. We know the Raiders are always highly touted but never can back it up. So where are the Raiders going? They're kind of in the middle of nowhere. They're stuck in the mud. There's not a whole lot of positive things going on in Vegas. If Anthony Richardson is there for them at 7, I think it's going to be very hard for them not to take him. And I wouldn't disagree with that. But to me, Vegas will take a defensive player, as boring as that is for their style. I think they'll take Devon Witherspoon, a corner from Illinois. He'll go to the Las Vegas Raiders. So just to update, only 2 quarterbacks are taken in the top 7 picks in my mock draft here. And this is where I think players go, not who I would necessarily take. 8th pick, Atlanta Falcons. If Anthony Richardson is on the board, Atlanta should take him. So I'm going to take Atlanta taking Anthony Richardson. Because, yes, they have Desmond Ridder, but he did not look good last year. He did not look like an NFL quarterback that's going to win you meaningful games. I love the Green Lizard, but Anthony Richardson can go in. He can compete for the job, or he can sit behind Desmond Ridder, and you can see what Desmond Ridder is. He either becomes a trade asset, he becomes a quarterback. You can play it out. But Arthur Smith is going into year 3, and the first 2 years have been really nondescript and have had little to no success. You drafted Kyle Pitts, 4th overall with a tight end. You drafted Drake London, 8th, which is the pick you have this year, so same pick year over year. And you drafted skill position players that has gotten you nowhere. So you could take a pass rusher and Lucas Van Ness. You could take an offensive tackle because there's a lot of good ones here. And I got them coming off the board soon. But to me, this Atlanta brass, I think they feel like they have to try to make a splash pick. They need to change the momentum of this team because if this is next year, it won't be Arthur Smith, the head coach, helping in the decision to make draft picks. I got Atlanta taking Anthony Richardson at 8. Drake London, Kyle Pitts. He played with Kyle Pitts at Florida, if you recall. Kyle Trask was the starting quarterback, but he was there. I have Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida, the biggest X factor quarterback when it comes to what he can be, not what he is currently in this draft. Going there. Number 9, the Chicago Bears. The Bears had the first overall pick. They traded with Carolina. They got DJ Moore. They finally have a great receiver for Justin Fields. So they have a receiver. They have good defensive players. For me, Chicago, fortify the offensive line. Make sure your quarterback's protected. I think they take Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. He's, to me, was the best tackle. He's graded the highest. I like him a lot. And to me, he played at Northwestern. That's close to Chicago. He's really good. I have the Bears taking Peter Skoronski. 10, the Eagles. Eagles are in this position because of the trade with the Saints for Chris Olave last year. Eagles made it to the Super Bowl, had the 10th pick in the draft. That's what Howie Roseman does. Let's think about the Eagles here. They have one of the best quarterbacks in football in Jalen Hurts. Check. One of the best receivers in football, A.J. Brown. Check. Maybe the best cornerback tandem, James Bradbury and Darius Big Play Slay. Check. A great defensive line. Check. Pretty great offensive line with Kelsey, Lane Johnson, and Co. Check. What don't you have? You don't have a really great running back. Miles Sanders is left for Carolina. You have a bunch of guys that are just there. So the Eagles could do something that most draft people say is stupid, and that's take a running back high. So you can get great running backs anywhere. But Bijan Robinson is the most talented skill position player in this draft because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run between the tackles. He is the most electrifying piece that you can get in this draft. It doesn't scream Eagles because it would go against everything that they believe in. But if you're sitting at 10, you're either taking, I think, an offensive lineman for depth. You're not taking a receiver. I don't think you're taking a corner. I just don't see a tight end. No, you don't need one because you have Dallas Goedert. Are you taking Myles Murphy? Do you take Nolan Smith? Brian Breesy? Those guys are later in the first round. There's no obvious selection. So to me, the Eagles, if they're in this spot, they should take Bijan Robinson or trade out. Or trade out for a team. Maybe Tennessee is at 11. As I have Tennessee taking a quarterback. But if I'm the Eagles at 10, I'm taking Bijan Robinson because your team is so talented. Put them over the top. Think of how you're going to beat the teams in the AFC when you get to the Super Bowl and attack the draft that way. Tennessee's at 11. I have Tennessee taking C.J. Stroud. To me, Tennessee, you hear about Tennessee moving up. I think they can stay in their position and get a quarterback. Get C.J. Stroud, the fourth quarterback of the draft, comes off the board. They play like New England a few years ago with Mac Jones. Just sit in the weeds, wait it out, get your quarterback. Don't waste any more draft capital. This team is not going anywhere this season. They're devoid of talent. Ryan Tannehill is still there. But I got Tennessee taking C.J. Stroud at 11, Ohio State quarterback. He may end up being the best quarterback in this draft, but he'll fall that far, whether it's warranted or not. 12 is Houston. Houston's second pick. Now, if Tennessee doesn't take a quarterback, Houston can end up with a quarterback at 12 after not taking one at 2, which is fascinating. But I don't think that'll happen. But just thinking about this out loud, if they don't take a quarterback at 2, they pick again at 12. They need players, but if you don't have a quarterback, why draft a skill position player? If you were Houston at 2, you take a great edge rusher. I would not take a receiver. Here's why. Who's throwing in the ball next year? Is he going to get injured? Things of that nature. You don't have anybody to play with yet. You could take Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's the best wide receiver in this draft. But for me, if you're Houston, you take an offensive lineman, you take Paris Johnson, or you take Darnell Wright with that pick. Paris Johnson's out of Ohio State. Darnell Wright went to Tennessee. It would be a perplexing draft by the Houston Texans to have 2 of those high picks and you don't take a quarterback or a skill position player on offense. But hey, tank. 13 is Green Bay via the Jets. I have Green Bay selecting, this pick's for my boy Matt Wright. I have Green Bay selecting Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer. Best tight end in the draft. There's a lot of good ones. Really talented. Great hands. Can do it all. So I have Green Bay's got good receivers already. To me, they don't need a receiver. They could use another offensive lineman, so I think they'll look at Paris Johnson. They'll look at Darnell Wright. But Robert Tonyan's gone. You need another good tight end. You can get a generational one here, a three down tight end. Green Bay will take Michael Mayer. 14, New England. Jackson Smith-Njigba would be sitting there. Or Quentin Johnson from TCU. New England should take a receiver in this draft. like they should most years because they can't draft them. But they won't. I think they'll take Joey Porter, a corner, out of Penn State. Should be a good player, but New England they ziggity zag when everybody is just zagging. You see a skill position player, they like Joey Porter Jr. I think New England will take Joey Porter Jr. in this draft. Doesn't make sense. They should take a receiver, try to help Mac Jones some. But I got New England taking Joey Porter Jr., corner, out of Penn State. 15, the Jets. Now the Jets, if Aaron Rodgers already has them by the you-know-where, the cojones, they take a wide receiver. But they already have Allen Lazard, and they already have Garrett Wilson, and they have Breece Hall at running back, and you have Tyler Conklin at tight end. You have Corey Davis. You have a lot of talent at receiver. So it's not your position of need. I would go with protecting my quarterback. I would take Darnell Wright, Paris Johnson, whoever is left for my offensive line. You can get a receiver later in the draft for Aaron Rodgers to make him somewhat happy. But you've already done enough. You got Allen Lazard. You did some things for him. Go get an offensive tackle. Washington at 60. Then you have Washington. You have Pittsburgh. Those picks are kind of nondescript for me. Going through it, I think, Njigba and Quentin Johnson could fall below 16, 17. Because I don't think the Steelers are going to take a wide receiver because, quite frankly, they don't need one. Washington may take one in Jackson Smith and Njigba. I think the Chargers at 21 are going to take a wide receiver. I think the Chargers will definitely take one. They could take Quentin Johnson, the big receiver, out of TCU. They could take Jordan Addison out of USC. I have a fifth quarterback going in the first round. The Minnesota Vikings will take Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee. He is 25. He'll be 26 in January. He's coming off an ACL injury. Was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL in college football last year. But the age, the injury concern, that's what's hampering him. But I think Minnesota looks at this and says, Kirk D. Cousins is only going to get us so far. We don't trust this guy. He's not a big game player. We need to do something. So I think at 23, they won't have to trade up. They won't have to do a whole lot. We're going to take Hendon Hooker. He'll sit for the entire year. We'll see what happens. But looking ahead, Seattle's got the 20th pick. Baltimore's at 22. Jacksonville at 24 is interesting. I think the Cowboys at 26. I think they're going to take Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah. I have Myles Murphy going at the end of the first round. He's an edge rusher out of Clemson. So there's some really good players. I'm looking at Daniel Jeremiah now, who's a great draft analyst, just to compare it to my thinking. He's got Bryce Young, he's got CJ Stroud going to Will Anderson. He's got Will Anderson, Indy taking Levis. He's got Jalen Carter going to the Seahawks, Witherspoon going to Detroit, Christian Gonzalez to the Raiders. He's got my corners flipped. He's got Bijan going to the Atlanta Falcons. Interesting. The Bears taking Tyree Wilson. Eagles taking Nolan Smith out of Georgia. Tennessee not taking a quarterback. Cardinals trading down. Kincaid going to Green Bay, going way earlier. Patriots taking Lucas Van Ness, a pass rusher. So he's got Anthony Richardson going 20 to Seattle. I can't see him falling that far. Seattle getting a quarterback at 20 after making a pick at 5. That'd be something else if you could get Jalen Carter and your possible quarterback of the future at 20. That would be a hell of a draft for John Schneider and Pete Carroll and co. But I don't think it's going to happen. But tonight's going to be fun. I'm going to have the TVs cooking with some NHL action. Keep an eye on that NBA game. But the draft, I got to have the computer. I got to watch it, of course. The NFL draft. Tomorrow I'll be back to recap every pick, preview the Game 6s. But before we close out today, just credit to the Miami Heat, who an 8 seed that beat the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games, including winning last night in overtime on the road. Jimmy Butler drops 46. I didn't think he'd have that in him again last night. And Giannis gave a really good press conference after the game. He talked about, Michael Jordan didn't win every year, and everybody fails. He's right, but I didn't love his media. It came across a little soft. It came across a little, it's okay here. It's pro sports. You play to win, and when you don't win, people aren't happy, and I'm sorry, but you were a number 1 seed. You lost to the 8 seed. That is the definition of failure. That is the definition of not coming up big. I love Giannis. I think he's the best player in the NBA, but you fucked up. Your team screwed up. You got the oldest team in the NBA. Seamus and I talked about it on Tuesday. I don't know where this team is going. They're old. They couldn't get by the zombie Heat. And now we have Heat Knicks. What is this, 1990s? Jeff Van Gundy, Alonzo Mourning? Heat Knicks. Knicks have home court. They beat the Cavaliers in 5 games. Can you believe it? Knicks fever. Will Ferrell, it's back. Craziness. Jalen Brunson, absolutely a star. Mitchell Robinson, owning the glass. Becoming a star right before our eyes. Not really, but a machine. I thought the Lakers would be the only team that closed it out last night. I was wrong. The only team that didn't, because LeBron didn't make the flight to Memphis. He played, but he didn't. He was garbage last night. Trash. Didn't show up. Lakers will close it out tomorrow, though. Sacramento lost to the Warriors. They're done. It's sad. I did say Warriors in 6, though, so at least I'm right. But Draymond Green, 20 points off the bench, 10 rebounds. Good team player when he wants to be. Hall of Famer. Great player. Lakers playing tomorrow night and the Kings game. So 2 good NBA games on tomorrow. Then you have Hawks, Celtics in Hotlanta. Celtics should close it out tonight. We should win easily. But they blew it in Game 5. Wouldn't it be interesting if it went back for Game 7 in the Garden? The Celtics couldn't close. The Bruins couldn't close out the Panthers last night. It's something brewing there in Boston. Something not so good. Who knew New York sports teams were going to be having a moment right now? And Miami teams having a moment over Boston. But I got the Celtics winning tonight. By at least 6. On the road. But Jason Tatum. Do you have a game, my friend? I know you wear number 0 and you want me to point out the little funny jokes, stuff like that, but it'd be nice if you had a game. It'd be nice if you showed up here every once in a while. But we shall see. Leafs Lightning. As I said off the top, Leafs win tonight by 2 goals or more. Rangers Devils. I got the Rangers showing up, winning on the road again. Pardon the pun. And I have the kid line having at least a combined 5 points this evening. And Winnipeg and Vegas. Winnipeg's too banged up. Hellebuck. I got Vegas winning 3-2 tonight at home ice, closing it out, waiting for the Oilers, who have to wait till Saturday to play for some reason. Anyhow, thank you all for tuning in today. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the draft. We'll break it all down tomorrow here on To The Point.